Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. You're very welcome to the programme, and I'm in the house of one of my members who goes to the Belfast City Mission Hall, and that's Jean Whitley. Hello, Jean.
Hello, Mark. Good to see you.
And so, Jean, I believe you went to see Billy Graham.
I went to see Billy Graham, and it was in Balmoral.
At the King's Hall.
Oh, yes.
And that was in the 1950s then.
It must have been the 1950s.
So is it too personal to ask what age you were then, Jean?
I can't really remember what age I was, but I was married when I was 18, so I must have been about 10 or 12 or...
Why were you there? Who invited you? Was it?
Well, it was the Girls' Brigade, First Belfast.
All right.
Brought us.
Very good. And so they brought you to the Billy Graham Crusade in the King's Hall?
They brought us to Billy Graham, and I couldn't get over the crowd that was there.
Is that right?
At the end of his ceremony, he asked for one to come forward, and going forward up to the front of the platform.
And did you go forward that night, Jean?
Yes, I went forward that night.
And why did you go forward for?
I felt God was calling me, and I felt the peace.
Brilliant, Jean. That's fantastic. So how long have you been saved, Jean? Were you saved that night?
I knew God was with me, but I had, over the years, I got married when I was 18. Over the years, I experienced I've had, I had renewed my
your faith
to Christ.
Very good, Jean.
And one particular night, we had a mission down in Rathcoon Methodist Church, and I was painting the bedroom up the stairs, and I felt I had to go. And I went that night to the mission. It was a minister from White Abbey.
Can you remember his name, Jean?
No, I have it wrote down. So I have, but just can't remember offhand.
Yes.
And I remember he made an appeal for ones to come forward at the end. And I was standing there, and all of a sudden I felt a clamp on my shoulder.
My goodness.
That I had to go down.
And was it somebody who put their hand on your shoulder?
No.
My goodness.
So
it was a prompting of the Holy Spirit then?
Yes.
That's fantastic, Jean. And Billy, of course, has been here. He was here in 1961 as well at Windsor Park.
No, I've never been. No.
But you haven't been to that one. And he was also here again in 1972.
No.
But it was the 1951 that you were at.
51 it was.
And sometime in the 1950s when he was at the King's Hall. So if there's anybody else who are watching this video and you were there that night, leave me a wee message. So is there anything else you want to add about that night, Jean?
Well, I was so taken back with the crowds have been there.
Aye.
So
well, that was one thing about Billy. Billy always drew a crowd.
He always drew a crowd. When we went out, there was no more mention of him. And no, in the company I was in.
Yes.
Or nobody had said anything more about it, as I can't remember.
Yes. Well, I've never seen Billy Graham. Of course, Billy's deceased now, so I never will see him until I get to heaven. But I have seen Franklin Graham, his son, in person, because I went to see Franklin at the Odyssey.
Yeah.
He was in the Odyssey. So I have seen, I can't remember what year it was now, but I wasn't actually in the auditorium. I was in a room because the auditorium was completely packed. You couldn't get anybody more in it. And even the room I was in, it was packed as well. So it was. So how then did you get involved with Belfast City Mission? How did you start going to the Fairview Road Hall,
Well,
Jane?
I went I lived in Rathcoole for 20 odd years, and that was the time the troubles were starting, and I wanted out of it. So I moved up to Ballyduff. I was busy working.
You were a manageress, weren't you?
I was a supervisor.
And where were you a supervisor?
I was a supervisor in Crazy Prices.
Oh my goodness, Jane. Crazy Prices.
Crazy
I remember
Prices
it well.
at Abbey Centre, but they had one already. One opened up in Glengormley, but I also worked at the shops at Abbott's Cross.
Oh, did you?
In the fruit shop and in the flowers.
Well, I can remember it was really Tesco's that took over from Crazy Prices, wasn't it?
It was. At that particular time when they took over, I had hurt my back and I was out ill at the time.
And I can remember my mum, when we were going to school, she would have sent us out some mornings with Crazy Prices. I don't know if you remember these. The yellow pack hamburgers and the yellow pack chocolate biscuits.
Yes.
She'd have given us some mornings 2 yellow pack hamburgers and 4 yellow pack chocolate biscuits.
Well, I was never involved. Sorry for interrupting.
You're okay, Jane.
I was never involved in the food end.
Yes.
As what they call in the hardware.
Oh, you were in the hardware section?
Hardware section.
Yes.
Where then they had washing machines, sewing machines, and all the different tools, the equipment, painting, paper, and all that.
Yes. Well, I says to my mum in later years, I says to her, Mum, is it any wonder we're the size we are? With all those yellow pack hamburgers and yellow pack digestive chocolate biscuits for breakfast going to school. She says, son, I never opened your mouth and shoveled it into you. But I'm surprised we didn't end up with mad cow disease, because that was sort of the time of the scare. Well, we didn't know it was going to be a scare, but that was when a lot of that stuff was at, wasn't it?
You're a lot younger than me. There's about, 30 or 40 years of difference between us. So
There is indeed. And you work with another lady who plays a vital role in the Belfast City Mission at Ballyduff.
Yes, it's Audrey.
Audrey McMullen.
I can't remember her. She was behind the check, in charge of the checkouts.
And that's how you met Audrey, was it then?
Yes.
Were you Audrey's supervisor?
No.
Oh, you weren't?
No, they were supervisor on their own. There were supervisors for the floor in each department.
Yes. So that's amazing that you were at the Billy Graham Crusade in the 1950s in the King's Hall, Jane. Fantastic.
Oh, it is.
Brilliant. And you've a lovely wee house here, and I see your wee cozy fire there.
Well, God has provided those. God has made me very comfortable through my life. I probably haven't. I always believed in God. He was always with me, and went to my church, and I was in the Methodist Women's Association.
Were you?
And the Young Wise. And did a lot in the church in Rathcoole. And then I came up the Ballyduff, and when the two ladies was going round the doors advertising for the Wednesday meeting was Florence and Anne. And they came the door with the leaflet.
Was that on Crichton?
Yes.
Very good.
And Florence.
Don't know Florence now.
And Florence said they were opening this on a Wednesday meeting.
Brilliant.
And I kept the wee leaflet and I threw it in the back hall. So when it opened up in the summertime, I went up to it.
And have you been going ever since?
And I've been going ever since.
Fantastic,
on a Wednesday.
Well, it was actually through Anne Crichton that I got to know you. because it was Anne asked me if I would go and visit you, and I said I would.
Yes.
So that's me and your connection, which was a fantastic meeting. So it was, and of course, we have been visiting from that, haven't we? Which is very good, and it's a privilege to be able to come. I have to say, Jean, whenever I always come to visit you, you always give me a big cappuccino.
Well, you have to look after you.
Absolutely.
You have to look after you, so you have.
Well, thank you, Jean, and
thank you for having me and listening to me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, so it is, and I trust the Lord bless you.
Thank you, Mark.